12 men walk along a dirt road, stretching south toward Capernaum. The afternoon sun casting long, jagged shadows against the limestone hills. The heat is heavy, the dust settles around his ankles. He looks at these 12 men who are obsessed with climbing the ladder, and he drops a word. The apostles disagreed completely. To serve the bread, to wipe the tables, to handle the logistics of charity, a man had to be full of the Holy Spirit, because holding the bread means holding power, and power without the Spirit always builds a hierarchy. The table waiter in God's economy carries a weight that the Roman Empire could never comprehend, because in the ancient world, the person bringing the food is entirely expendable. But in the book of Acts, the person bringing the food is carrying the very authority of the king, and that authority is about to explode out of the kitchen and into the streets in a way the religious elite never saw coming. When we think of a waiter, we think of an employee. We think of someone working for a wage, someone whose job is entirely transactional. But in the ancient Near East, the relationship between a master and a trusted servant carried a completely different kind of weight. When a wealthy patron or a king sent a servant on an errand, that servant did not merely carry a message. He carried the identity of the sender. He carried the heavy brass signet ring. He carried the scroll sealed with hot red wax. When that servant spoke, the hearer was legally bound to respond as if the master himself were standing in the room. That completely dismantles their entire hierarchy. He is not offering a promotion. He is demanding a descent. The authority was not located in the servant's pedigree. It was located entirely in the servant's commission. This is why you see something startling happen immediately after the apostles appoint the 7 men to serve the tables in the book of Acts. You would expect these men to disappear into the administrative background. You would expect them to stay in the kitchen, organizing the grain, and wiping the sweat from their foreheads with rough linen cloths. But that is not what happens. Stephen, the very first man listed among the table waiters, immediately walks out into the streets and begins performing massive signs and wonders among the people. Philip, another man appointed to distribute the daily rations, ends up sparking a massive revival in Samaria and baptizing an Ethiopian official on a desert highway. These men were not supposed to be the preachers. They were the logistical help. But the early church understood something that the modern corporate church structure completely misses. The distribution of the bread is not a secular task. It is a holy mandate. When Stephen handed a loaf of bread to a starving Greek widow, he was not acting as a charity worker. He was acting as the authorized envoy of Jesus Christ. He was demonstrating the exact economic and social reality of the kingdom of heaven. Jesus introduces a concept that we have spent 2,000 years scrubbing clean. We have sterilized it, printed it on name tags, bringing provision to the outcast and justice to the overlooked. A diakonos is not a title of administration. It is a heavily armed deployment of grace. The servant kicking up dust on the road is actually the king's representative, reshaping the world one shared meal at a time. To the Roman mind, the man holding the apron was the lowest person in the room. To the early church, the man holding the apron was terrifyingly close to the heart of God. But to see what this authority actually looks like in its absolute purest form, you have to look away from the disciples entirely. You have to step into a quiet room on the night before the execution and watch what the master himself decides to do. The heavy wooden door is shut against the noise of Jerusalem. The Passover meal is ending. The room smells of roasted lamb, crushed bitter herbs, and the sweat of men who have walked miles in the spring heat. The oil lamps flicker, casting long, wavering shadows across the stone floor. And once again, an argument has broken out among the 12. Luke's gospel tells us that even here, in the shadow of the cross, they are still bickering over who is the greatest, and turned it into a respectable institutional office. We translate the word he uses as servant. They are still obsessed with the chairs. Jesus does not shout. He does not deliver a blistering theological lecture. He stands up. He takes off his outer garment, the physical marker of his status as a rabbi. He picks up a rough linen towel. He ties it around his waist. He lifts a heavy clay pitcher and pours water into a basin. The sound of the water splashing echoes in the sudden, suffocating silence of the room. Every argument stops. Every mouth closes. In the ancient Near East, washing the feet of guests was a task so fundamentally degrading that Jewish law often exempted Hebrew slaves from having to do it. It was reserved for the lowest Gentile servant in the household. It was the job of the invisible one. It was the job of the DIAKONOS. Jesus kneels on the stone floor. He reaches out and takes hold of their unwashed feet, feet that are caked in the dust of the road, feet stained with mud and animal dung. The hands that formed the dry land cup the dirty heels of fishermen. The hands that spun the galaxies wipe away the grime of the empire. The hands that will soon be pinned to heavy timber wash the feet of the man who just sold him for 30 pieces of silver. Or in other New Testament contexts, deacon. When Jesus says, "Whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant," we nod our heads. Peter cannot handle it. He recoils. He pulls his feet back. Peter understands the Roman hierarchy perfectly, and this shatters it. The master does not touch the dirt. The king does not kneel before the peasant. But Jesus is doing exactly what he told James and John he came to do. This is not a temporary suspension of his kingship. It is the purest expression of it. He is physically acting out the etymology of the word diakonos. He is moving through the dust. He is entering the dirt of human existence, not to condemn it, but to wash it clean. He is taking the absolute lowest position in the human hierarchy and declaring that this right here, on his knees, holding a dirty heel, is what the throne of heaven actually looks like. He finishes. He puts his outer garment back on. He sits back down at the table. He looks at the 12 men who are still trying to process the shocking humiliation they just witnessed. And he asks them if they understand what he has done. He tells them he has given them an example, but that example creates a crushing reality for those of us living 2,000 years later. Because stepping into the dust to serve the people around you rarely feels like a moment of glory. We put it on bumper stickers. We write best-selling books about servant leadership, where the goal is still leadership, just with a friendlier face. If you are in a season where you are exhausted by the sheer anonymity of your work, this is the room you need to sit in. Maybe you are the one stacking cold metal chairs in the fellowship hall long after the crowds have driven home. Maybe you are the one quietly managing the logistics, answering the frantic emails, or wiping up the sticky, spilled juice, while the people on the stage receive the applause. Maybe you are pouring your life out for an aging parent, or a child who cannot say thank you, and you feel that heavy, invisible ache in your shoulders under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. You are kicking up dust in a culture that only rewards the people sitting down. You watch other people climb the ladder. You see the ambitious ones, the loud ones, the ones demanding the seats on the right and the left, stepping over you to get to the microphone or the corner office. And in those moments, in the quiet fatigue of doing what no one else wants to do, the resentment naturally starts to build. You start to believe the Roman lie. You start to think that because nobody sees your towel, your work does not matter. But look closely at the men in the upper room. The disciples who demanded the thrones are the ones sitting in stunned, embarrassed silence. We read this passage and think Jesus is teaching a gentle moral lesson about being nice to people. But to a first-century audience standing, the man holding the dirty heel is the one who holds the cosmos together. Your invisibility is not a sign of your insignificance. It is the exact location of your authority. When you step into the dirt of human need, you are not stepping away from your calling. You are stepping directly into the terrifying, magnificent pattern that Jesus himself established. To be a diakonos is to carry the heavy signet ring of the king into the places the empire refuses to touch. The world evaluates you by the title on your door and the cleanliness of your shoes. Heaven evaluates you by the dust on your feet. The exhaustion you feel is real, but the labor is not a waste. It is the friction of heaven dragging against the grain of a self-obsessed world. And that friction is the only thing that has ever actually changed the world. Because when you step back and look at the entire sweeping narrative of this text, you realize this was never just about a single lesson on a single night. 2 brothers demanded the highest thrones, and they received a mandate for the dirt. 12 men fought bitterly over the seats, and they watched their master drop to his knees. The early church faced a crisis of starvation, and table waiters were armed with the Spirit. Stephen carried the daily bread, and he shook the foundations of the city. Philip distributed the rations, and he ignited a revival in the desert, on a Judean road. That word did not sound like a polite church committee. It sounded offensive. It sounded like the absolute bottom of the social barrel. The Roman Empire built an absolute ladder of power, and the disciples smashed it with an apron. The king of the cosmos took off his robe, and he washed the grime off the feet of a traitor. One word. One completely upside-down kingdom. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the sound of the water splashing in the basin. Not a theoretical concept of humility. Not a polished boardroom strategy. The literal, physical dirt washing off the calloused heel of Peter. The shocking, terrifying realization that the God of the universe does not just tolerate the unglamorous work, he actively chooses it. If you are in a season where you feel completely forgotten, where your service feels invisible, and where you are deeply tempted to drop the towel and demand a seat at the table, look at the floor of the upper room. Look at the hands that hold the cosmos holding a dirty foot. The highest rank in heaven is not the one wielding the gavel. It is the one holding the basin. If this shifted something in you, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted from pouring themselves out behind the scenes. Pray for us as we keep digging into these ancient texts. Jesus is not handing out a corporate strategy. He is diagnosing a disease that most of us do not even realize we have: the human addiction. And may the God who stepped down from the throne to wash the feet of his betrayer meet you in your lowest, most unseen moments and show you that you have never been closer to the heart of the King, to being perceived as important. And the antidote he prescribes is hidden in the ancient Greek etymology of that single, scandalous word. Sand coats their leather sandals, working its way between their toes. The smell of sweat and dried earth hangs in the air. They are whispering. The answer changes how you read every interaction you have with authority. It changes how you view every position of power you will ever hold. But to understand the sheer weight of what Jesus just asked them to do, you have to leave the modern sanctuary behind. You have to step back into a world where power was measured in bronze and blood. Walk into almost any church today. Look for the deacons. Look for the recognized servants. You will find them in boardrooms. You will see them holding clipboards. You will find them sitting behind polished mahogany tables under bright fluorescent lights. You will see their names engraved on brass plaques. You will watch them vote on annual budgets. You will see them manage complex spreadsheets. You will find them wearing polished shoes and drinking from ceramic coffee mugs. We have taken a word born in the dirt and put it in a suit. We have taken an action of profound humiliation and turned it into a respectable office. We have traded the basin for a badge. The modern deacon is not a reflection of the ancient reality. It is an insulation against it. To understand the shockwave of what Jesus is saying, you have to look at the machinery of Rome. In the first-century Greco-Roman world, the social ladder was everything. It was rigid. It was ruthless. It was absolute. The whispers turn into muttering, and the muttering turns into a bitter, hushed argument. They glance over their shoulders at the rabbi walking a few paces ahead. Honor was the only currency that mattered. Shame was equivalent to social death. The wealthy sat at the table. The powerful reclined on cushioned couches. The important people were served. And the people serving them? They were completely invisible. They were the background noise of the empire. They poured the heavy wine. They washed the blistered feet. They carried away the filth. They swept the cold stone floors. They stood in the shadows, while the elite men debated philosophy and politics in the light. Nobody looked them in the eye. Nobody remembered their names. To be a servant in this world was to be utterly devoid of agency. Your time was not your own. Your body was not your own. Your reputation was non-existent. You only mattered in relation to how well you facilitated the comfort of someone greater than you. You did not get a title. You did not get a plaque. You got calluses. This is the world Jesus steps into. This is the cultural gravity he is actively fighting. The 12 men following him are breathing this Roman air. They are deeply infected by this Roman metric of success. They look at Jesus and see a conquering king. They look at his coming kingdom and see a political revolution. They want the corner offices. They want the chief seats at the banquet. They want the glory without the grit, ensuring the wind does not carry their voices to his ears. Their voices grow sharper, cutting through the quiet of the valley. They are fighting over chairs. But Jesus does not just tell them no. He does not simply offer a mild moral correction about the virtues of humility. He is about to take the entire Roman pyramid of power, flip it completely upside down, and crush it into the dust of a Judean road. And it starts with a deeply uncomfortable request from two brothers who thought they deserved the best seats in the house. The road winding up to Jerusalem is steep, and the air is growing thin. Jesus is walking ahead of the group, and a strange, heavy dread hangs over the men following him. He has just told them exactly what is waiting for him in the city. He has spoken of betrayal. He has described the Roman whip tearing flesh, the spit of the guards on his face, the execution, the rising. He is preparing them for a funeral. They are planning a coronation. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, pull him aside. You can picture the quiet intensity in their eyes, the sweat on their dirt-streaked faces, the hushed tone they use, so the other 10 cannot hear. They look at the man who controls the wind and the waves, and they make their pitch. Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. It is the ultimate blank check. Jesus asks what they want, and they do not hesitate. Grant us to sit, one at your right hand. Most people read the Gospels and assume the disciples were spiritual giants, floating from town to town, meditating on high theology, and one at your left, in your glory. This is not a request for responsibility. It is a demand for supremacy. In the ancient royal courts, the seats on the right and left were the positions of absolute executive power. They are asking to be the co-regents of the new empire. They want the authority to dictate terms. They want the crowds to bow when they walk past. Jesus looks at them, knowing the cross is only days away. He tells them they do not know what they are asking. He asks if they can drink the bitter cup he is about to drink. If they can endure the baptism of suffering he is about to endure. They nod immediately. They say they can. They have absolutely no idea what those words actually mean. Then the whisper breaks. The conversation leaks out. The other 10 disciples hear what the sons of Zebedee have done. And Mark's gospel tells us they are indignant. The text describes a violent physical irritation, a seething anger that makes your chest tight. They are furious. But they are not angry because James and John are being arrogant. They are angry because James and John beat them to the punch. The 10 are furious because they wanted those chairs. Every single one of them is operating on the exact same Roman hierarchy of dominance. But if you look at the raw, unedited text, you see a different reality. You see the same thing again and again. They are a dozen men arguing over who gets to be the master. So Jesus calls them together. He stops the caravan in the middle of the dirt and the heat. He gathers these 12, furious, ambitious men in a circle, and he dismantles their entire worldview with a single, devastating contrast. He tells them that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them, but it shall not be so among you. And then, he redefines greatness using a word that makes no sense to a Roman mind. Mark, chapter 10, verse 43. Jesus looks at his seething, ambitious friends and drops a sentence that shatters their paradigm of power. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. The word your English Bible translates as servant in that verse is the Greek DIAKONOS. It is the exact same word that later gets transliterated into the English word deacon. Today, we associate that word with board meetings, administrative oversight, and managing church property. But if you trace the etymology of the word, the imagery is far more aggressive and far less glamorous. then a polite church usher handing out paper bulletins. Many scholars trace the root of diakonos to two older Greek words, dia, which means through or thoroughly, and konis, which means dust or dirt, through the dust. A constant, anxious obsession with rank. Who sits on the right hand? Who gets the public recognition? If seeing the raw, original language of the text is stirring up a hunger to read your Bible differently, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So, a diakonos is literally someone who kicks up dust. Picture the physical reality of the ancient world. The roads are unpaved. The floors are stone or packed earth. The air is dry. A diakonos is a servant moving so quickly to meet a need, running so fast on an urgent errand for the master, that a cloud of dirt rises around their ankles. The dust clings to the sweat on their calves. They are not stationary. They are not reclining on a couch, debating theology. They are in the dirt, moving, sweating, serving. True greatness, Jesus argues, leaves a trail of dust. It is a staggering reversal of everything the disciples just asked for. James and John want to sit on thrones, elevated above the grime of the earth, completely insulated from the messy, demanding realities of human need. Jesus tells them the highest rank in his kingdom is the person with the dirtiest feet. A diakonos is not a position of administrative privilege. It is a posture of urgent, lowly action. It means your hands are going to get calloused. It means your clothes are going to get stained. Who holds the highest position when the political revolution finally overthrows Rome? They are measuring their worth by who gets to sit down while others stand. It means you are plunging headfirst into the chaotic, unglamorous reality of other people's lack, other people's hunger, and other people's pain. Jesus is telling the 12 that if they want to lead, they have to get off the pedestal and get into the dirt. And this was not just a poetic metaphor that Jesus threw out and forgot. Within a few decades, in this exact word and the dusty urgency it demanded would become the solution to the very first internal crisis the early church ever faced. Jerusalem is bursting at the seams. Thousands are being baptized. The church grows. The system breaks. The widows starve. The murmuring starts. It is a powder keg of cultural tension. Greek-speaking Jews are watching their most vulnerable women get skipped in the daily distribution of bread. Aramaic-speaking Jews are getting the food. The anger is palpable. You can hear the bitter complaints echoing in the narrow alleyways. You can see the empty woven baskets. You can feel the fracture threatening to split the newborn church right down the middle. The 12 apostles realize they cannot manage the chaos alone. They gather the disciples. They issue a command. Find 7 men. Men of good repute. Men full of the Spirit. Men full of wisdom. And they give these 7 men a task. And it is right here, in the middle of this petty argument about kingdom seating arrangements, that Jesus stops on the road. He turns around. They tell them to diakones, to serve tables. This is the first official appointment of the men who would later be called deacons. Look at who they pick. Look at the names. Stephen, Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, Nicholas. Every single one of them is a Greek name. The apostles do not choose neutral arbiters. They do not pick Roman bureaucrats. They choose men from the aggrieved minority. They put the marginalized in charge of the bread. And look at the job description. They are not given a mahogany desk. They are not handed a gavel. They are handed aprons. They are put in charge of the food. They carry the heavy baskets of grain. They wipe down the rough wooden tables. They distribute the daily rations. They make sure the Greek widows get exactly what the Hebrew widows get. They step directly into the heat, the noise, the mess, and the endless, exhausting demand of human need. This is not an executive appointment. It is a deployment to the trenches. The first deacons were not board members voting on a building fund. They were waiters. They were distributors of literal, physical bread. They were men kicking up dust in the Judean heat to make sure starving women did not die in the streets. We assume that waiting tables is mundane work. We assume it requires low spiritual voltage. We reserve our highest spiritual requirements for the men holding the microphones.